Wow. Welcome to Target. I'm your host, Atlas Aultman, former military commander turned best-selling author, now bringing you a podcast that you can use so that you can figure it out for yourself. Welcome. This is Targeted. All right, welcome back to Targeted. This is an amazing opportunity that I've been waiting for since Don Fry gave me this man's number. And I'm like, do I call him? Do I not call him? And I ran into him recently. This is Sheriff Mark Lamb, former sheriff of Pinal County.
Yes,
You've
sir.
seen him on Fox. You've seen him on podcasts that are huge. You've seen him out and about because he's making a difference. The man is truly amazing. I've been a fan for a while. In fact, I'm wearing one of his shirts.
Yeah, I love it.
So for people that don't know you, how do you describe yourself? Who are you?
A patriot. Look, I'm a man who is an authentic, unapologetic defender of God, family, freedom, and the Constitution. That's how I describe myself.
I love it. I love that. Just real quick, there's some things that are happening in the news right now.
Yeah.
We saw just yesterday a shooting in self-defense. There's different camera angles. A lot of things are going on. But let me just ask you this right out of the gate. Like, in the wake of this ICE shooting, what do you say, like, right now to leaders who are looking at law enforcement from a family perspective or an officer perspective and thinking, man, do they have my back?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest questions guys ask. Getting into this profession, they want to know whether their leadership has their back. I did an interview with Matt Gaetz on OAN, like probably within, I don't know, hours of this happening, 12 hours of it happening. And I said, look, this is a justified shooting. What I find so despicable and disgraceful is how the media has approached this and how the politicians in Minnesota have approached this. They have vilified this man who was merely doing the job that Congress has set forth for them. And look, my heart goes out to the family of anybody that's tragic that life was lost. But this was not the agent's fault. They were doing their job, and this lady made a conscientious decision. I think we'll find out in time whether she was a paid actor or not. But she was the leader. She was leading the caravan of people that were getting in the way of ICE agents. She was purposely obstructing a federal law enforcement investigation, and they were treating her pretty good. Like they said, hey, ma'am, they got out of the car, they approached the car, and multiple angles show that there was an agent in front of the car. The angle of the bullet entry into the car shows that he was in front of the car.
Yeah.
This is the same guy who's already been hit by one car and had 30 stitches in his leg. And
that's when he was drugged, right?
When he was drugged.
Holy
and
crap.
So now this guy, this is a totally justified shooting. So going back to your original question, the men and women who put on this badge every day, they want to know that we got their back.
Yeah.
And you have a real push across this country where people are trying to take away qualified immunity from police. And we're making split-second decisions. Judges have all the time in the world to review cases and make decisions, and they still screw it up. And they're the ones, if anybody should lose qualified immunity, it should be judges. Judges should be the ones being sued for letting criminals back out on the street. I know that has nothing to do with what happened the other day.
Yeah.
I don't want people to conflate the two issues. But in the end, I guess my point to the shooting in Minnesota is it was a justified shooting. And this could have been avoided had she simply stayed home and let the federal government do their job. If you don't like the policies that have these guys on the streets removing people who came into this country illegally,
right,
and in many cases who have orders by judges to be removed from this country, if you don't like that, go to the offices of your congressmen and senators because they're the ones that pass the laws. Do not go on the streets and impede investigations and obstruct investigations of our law enforcement, because now this man has to live with taking somebody's life. And we should be talking about how can we help this guy process all this?
Yeah, the thing that's always forgotten about, and coming from a military background, we always think about the family unit because it's a controlling lever to the thoughts and the processes of the person that has to make that split second decision. How are family members affected by this, do you think?
Well, I said yesterday on the interview as well, or it was 2 days ago, I guess, on the interview, I said, look, this guy has every right to go home to his family as well.
Right.
I think the media and the politicians have vilified our federal law enforcement and law enforcement in many places, but certainly vilified our federal law enforcement. And that's shameful. I mean, to use the term murder for this yesterday, she was attempting to murder him with her car, and he defended himself and he was doing his job. But he has a right to go home to his family. And the majority of the people that are protesting or who are violently obstructing our federal law enforcement, they are treating these guys as if they're robots, and they're not. They have families too.
Yeah.
And they're doing a job, and they're trying to put food on the table for their families.
It's not just a job. I hear these words, thank you for your service all the time, and it's applied to military. And it's one of those things like, how you doing? Good morning. It's just something that people say, they don't even feel. But people don't say the same thing to law enforcement, even though the service is a harder service because you go into someone's bad day every day. Yeah. Like how did you handle that when you were a sheriff? How did you tell all of your law enforcement officers, whether they were partners or yours, hey man, I know this is something that you're going to have to deal with. Thank you for your service. I'm glad you said that. And I mean this in no disrespect to anybody who served in the military, because I have nothing but respect. My oldest son was in the 82nd Airborne. My youngest son is in boot camp right now. We are a military family. The average military service person will serve 3, maybe 4 years. And most of them are not combat soldiers. Correct.
Only a small fraction of those actually in the military are combat soldiers. And even fewer actually extend contracts and actually serve significant time. And now as we get further away from the wars in the Middle East, we're finding we have less and less that actually had any service abroad either. Now that's not to take away from the service.
Correct.
Our law enforcement serve every day. There is no downtime. There is no 6 month go home and recoup and go back to the base. No. Not only that, when we go pick a dead child up off of the streets on an accident, we don't get to go home. We go right back out to work. We go in and we take a report of a woman who's been beat within an inch of her life at a domestic. We don't go home. We go right back to work.
Right.
And yet we live in a great county. Our Pinal County and the citizens are so supportive of our law enforcement, which is nice, which is why people want to work in Pinal County. Yeah. And it makes a huge difference for the men and women. And it makes it easy for me as a sheriff to be able to recruit people into our agency when I was the sheriff there. And so having support from your community is everything. I can't even imagine what it'd be like to serve in a community where they despise the police. But most of that is not from the citizens. That is from paid agitators, people who are paying people to go out and disrupt the community.
Yeah.
It also comes from politicians who do things like get up there and say that this was not right. Or and I think it started under Obama, a big push against law enforcement. I attribute a lot of that flip to him. But yeah, look, I'm a big believer that the majority of cops will serve over 20 years, and we get no VA loans,
right?
No health care, there's no VA hospital for us.
Yeah.
Literally, they say, thanks for 20 years of combat experience on the streets of America. Goodbye.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because I had Brickman Allen in here, and he was talking about he left his garage door open on accident. A fishing pole, like unknowingly, left his garage door open. So this guy comes in, stabs him, almost kills him and his wife. And he was talking about the battle with this intruder. And he's a survivor. He came out of that. But I was like, you experienced combat. And he's like, I didn't think about it like that until like recently. But yeah, I had a knife fight with somebody. And most military people don't have that. In the police force or in law enforcement, there's a lot of fights, physical fights and mental. I had a detective from New York on my show. He was talking about verbal judo. And that's just something that you guys have to deal with because, it's America. And you're speaking the same language with the people that are usually trying to do bad things or have just done bad things or trying to recoup from bad things.
When you engage in combat overseas, usually there's a mission plan, and usually who the enemy is. You've engaged, if you've had engagements before, the style of engagements. In law enforcement, you have no idea.
Yeah.
You could show up for a suspicious person, which tend to be some of the worst ones. Domestic violence. You could show up. I've had times where I've been in a domestic violence where the guy's just beat the crap out of his wife, and now we're putting handcuffs on him, and she's jumping on our back now, fighting with us. I've been in countless physical altercations. I've had my gun drawn and could have been in shootings many times. Within a razor hair. Thank goodness I'm one of those guys that didn't have to ever take somebody's life. But I attribute my willingness to be swift and violent when it needed to be, and take control of the situation so that they were not hurt any worse, and I wasn't hurt, and anybody else around me wasn't hurt. Now I do these body cam reviews, so please go check out my channel on YouTube at Real American Sheriff.
We'll put it up.
I'm getting ready to kick off a true crime one too, so make sure you check out that one. That one's going to be at Lamb Investigations. So I do these body cam reviews, and you can clearly see this is in our law enforcement officers' mind now. They're concerned. They go to their taser far too soon. They go to the tools on their belts as opposed to going hands-on with people. And they wait too long. And so the scenes get further and further out of control. These people get more and more emboldened. The longer you let somebody mother F you, on a scene or refuse your orders, the more emboldened they get. And then when you do actually have to eventually put hands on them or use some type of level of force, then it becomes much more difficult to restore balance and order to the chaos. And so I just wish that more agencies would empower their law enforcement, their deputies, their police officers. I was very empowering. I told my people, you don't mess around. We treat our people with respect. Our citizens, we protect their constitutional rights. But if you get out of line, we're going to put you in line because that's our job. And we don't want you to get hurt, and we don't want to get hurt. And because of that, we were very successful. And, we never got complaints of excessive force. I mean, we got people, our citizens appreciated the work that we did. But I watched a ton of body cam, and that's, one of my takeaways is it's a little disappointing to see just how scared or how reluctant, I said, that's the word, reluctant to use force, because I think they're worried about what the consequences may be for them on the backside. I think the whole administrative reaction to law enforcement nowadays has changed from when I grew up and when I was watching this. I have family in law enforcement, and we talk about the Boston Strangler as my grandpa arrested, brought him to jail. He's like, he was a regular guy. With my grandpa, who enforced, this is how it's going to be right up front. And if you do this, there's violence going to be, there's measures in place that now I think police officers are scared and reluctant to. And the other thing is, we've got to do a better job in our profession. And it's a tough profession because we're doing swing shifts. And, we're eating, if you have a night shift, which I worked most of my career on night shift, you're eating, Whataburger, Jack in the Box, whatever's open 24 hours. And you're sitting in a car a lot of times, you're drinking a ton of caffeine. And so it has its effect on our bodies. And so you get these cops that are out of shape, and the stress, just the stress. And then you have stress at home, and then there's alcohol involved. And so what happens is it takes its toll on our bodies. And so when an out of shape, sloppy cop gets out of a car, the bad guy is going to assess him immediately and say, can I or can I not get away with this situation? I always wanted to present myself in a way that if they knew that if they didn't do what I was asking them to do, that it would not go their way. That's always important to make sure that all right, let me bridge some things. Let me go back a little bit. So you have direct experience with cartels, and we talked about law enforcement. I want to bring cartels into it. The military aspect. What do you think about what happened where Delta went in and stole the president out of someone's country? What are your thoughts on that? And let me frame it this way, because I've heard from a lot of opinions that the cartel, you're not going to be able to mess with the cartel like you did in Afghanistan, like you did in Iraq. It's going to be different. Yet we stole the president out of his own country in the middle of the night.
Talk about that.
Well, that's how it's different, because you just go snatch them up.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do that with the cartel guys too. They live in ginormous houses. They don't tell me that the CIA doesn't know where they're at. I was in Panama in 1989 and 1990. I was 17 years old. I'll send you the pictures. You can put them up there.
Love it.
I was 17 years old, and at the time, I thought military is the course I wanted to take. And I'd gone to Panama. We were there for Christmas vacation. My family had lived down there for many years, and still did for many years after. But we didn't live on the military bases. My dad was a businessman, and so my mom wakes me up at 1 o'clock in the morning on December 20th, 1989, and says, they're bombing. So I went out, and we lived on the 10th floor on the edge of something called Punta Paitilla, which is on the point, and you could see into old Panama. But we had views of all four sides of the building. Yeah. And so sure enough, I go out there onto the patio, and we can see, and they're just, it looked like what we saw the other night. Right. And in Venezuela. In Venezuela, yeah. And then I went to the other side, and I saw the firefight where the Navy SEALs were unfortunately killed on the Paitilla airport, the airstrip. And I could see firefights all over. I was looked down, and I could see a black limousine, and they were loading RPGs, and it wasn't the military. It was, Noriega's people. They kidnapped people from our building. And for 5 days, I went out and I took a gun and I stood guard at our building, spent Christmas morning that year holding a gun as a little 17-year-old, trying to protect our building from the looters and from everybody. But I bring that up because it reminded me a lot of that. But they didn't get Noriega at that time, and that lasted a month. This was you have to give President Trump credit and the administration credit for executing a mission to perfection. Yeah, they went in there, Delta, DEA. I mean, obviously it was Delta that did the the work. Yeah, it's been. You're not much of a president if guys can swoop in and take you out and try that here. Yeah. Try that here. Yeah, it ain't happening. Yeah. So you're not much of a president, and they didn't acknowledge him as a president anyway. And so I've never seen a group of people be more, because of the hate for a president of this country, be more on the side of criminals. This was a man who killed people who didn't agree with him politically. This was a man who dealt drugs. He worked hand in hand with TDA, Tren de Aragua. He was a criminal. And we did the world a favor by taking this man into custody. Now, you can say what you want, and I'm sure there are alternate factors. Yeah. I'm sure oil comes into play, and a lot of other things come into play. But this man wreaked havoc on the lives of the Venezuelan people for years. And they did the world a favor removing him, and he's a criminal, and he deserved to be removed. And I thought the way that the president did it was so. To your point, that was a long answer to say, if the cartels think that we can't go and pluck them out in the middle of the night, think again.
Yeah, I've entertained bringing some people who know the cartel and their operations and have maybe trained the cartel in. And bring them in with someone like you and just be like, all right, guys, go at it. See how this goes. Because I can tell you, and I have experience in JSOC and Joint Special Operations Command, working with the most elite people that the military produces. And I can tell you, those guys are elite for a reason, man. They have years, decades of training that I don't care who you are.
And they are straight up killing machines.
And they're a team. Yeah. And I think that's a big difference. And I see that in law enforcement, and I see that in special law enforcement, like SWAT or specific missions. But I see that a lot in the military. They do things together. They know each other's shadows. When they speak at night, they know who it came from. It isn't something where they're playing guesswork. They know each other. And that's why they went in and took out everybody.
They're professionals beyond belief. They are the pinnacle of military professionalism and warriors. Yeah. And I mean, they executed that mission to perfection. Yeah. And now, having said that, knowing the cartels, it takes military to intervene to stop the cartels. Mm-hmm. This is why I've said for a long time, we need to declare the cartels terrorists. So when the president did that after he took office, I know I'm not trying to be political, but when that happened, I wouldn't have mattered which president did it. I would have been extremely grateful for them to declare them, because we in law enforcement don't have the weaponry, and we don't have the boots on the ground to be able to stop These guys can recruit, and many of their people that they have on the ground with them are combat hardened guys. They may not have the good tactics, but they are combat hardened. Many of these have been in many gunfights. And so you need military units to be able to deal with them. And so I 100% support treating them like the terrorists that they are. Because Americans think, oh, well, terrorism has to do with, maybe somebody from the Middle East, which I think is that's a fallacy.
No.
Terrorism can come from anybody.
It's everywhere.
And if you look at it, we're conditioned to see terrorism as a bomb going off or a plane crashing into a building or somebody walking into a crowded area and shooting a gun. Yeah. But the reality is terrorism has changed. China and the Mexican cartels and the other cartels, including Maduro, they have inflicted terrorism on our country. They are killing Americans at a greater number than any bomb or any military threat has ever killed. We have 75,000 to 100,000 Americans dying every year from fentanyl poisonings and drugs. And we're still waiting for a bomb to go off to declare this terrorism. Families lay awake at night praying that their child doesn't die from the fentanyl poisonings that they're currently taking, or that maybe they might take by accident. This is what terror looks like. And they are successfully killing hundreds of thousands of Americans. And we continue to just pretend like this isn't terrorism. I don't know. None of those guys living in caves in the Middle East were greater terrorist threats than the cartels are.
Yeah, it's amazing to me whenever we look at this for what it is. And 2000, I think that was when legal words were pushed against Maduro. In 2026 now, man. That's 26 years of watching him do bad things. I think the last news report I read was $15 to $18 billion of oil that was owed to the United States that has been just trafficked in different areas.
Nobody had the balls to go do something about it.
Yeah, well,
now we do.
Yeah, now we do.
Look, and oil, for whatever people say, they're like, oh, it was about the oil. Don't forget, a lot of the oil were American companies that were kicked out. So American companies go in, build the refineries, and then they kick them out, and then they take the profits of all the oil.
Yeah, I've seen this firsthand in other countries. I know I was in South Africa a while back, and the Chinese have a big foothold in South Africa. So whenever we came in as Americans, they were like, whatever, you're not giving us free, whatever.
Yeah.
So, cell towers, infrastructure, power, and all that. And China did that in Venezuela, and so did Russia. And so there's a lot of influence there. And what I'm seeing on the national stage is, we see Iran right now. It's in shambles. And, people are putting President Donald Trump, street over the street signs. And that says something for where American influence is going and taking back. We're back. We're back on the world stage as a power. And our government has always been the strongest. And that's just not political, a fact. So let me go back.
Only in America, though, do we have this cross section or this underbelly of society that teaches our children to hate America and twist history to make them feel hatred towards the country that is the greatest country in the world. That doesn't occur in other places.
Yeah.
And
freedom of speech is tearing down the country that gives them that freedom.
It's a concerted effort. If anybody who doesn't think so, I would challenge you to go read, a lot of the communist stuff and Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, and they're following it to a T. They start in the educational systems and they brainwash and look, there's a psyop. Psyops are going on all the time on social media to try to convince people. I mean, it's one way or the other. I mean, you really have to be, I think you got to be grounded in God. I think you've got to be grounded in the Constitution. And for anybody out there, because there's a lot of people that are like, I don't want us going and I'm with them. I'm sick and tired of solving the world's problems. Yeah. I want America first and Americans first.
Yeah.
That is an important piece to this.
It's huge.
I think we need to we got to stop sending money all over the world. We've got to stop. And what we're doing in many cases is we're empowering and we're enriching the same people we have to turn around and fight later on.
Yeah.
We've got to stop expending money on stupid stuff like finding out if there's gay frogs in Indonesia. Yeah. This is ridiculous, the money that we're spending on some of these programs.
Yeah.
And they're government programs, so they'll never go away. And we're sick and tired of people not being held accountable when the corruption is uncovered and nobody's held accountable because of your stature or who you are. We're watching now as this fraud unfolding in Minnesota. And the American people want to see some handcuffs put on some people, and not just the Somalis or whoever it was that were actually affecting it. We want to see those people arrested, take their homes, whatever they bought with the money that was, used with fraud money.
Money leaves a trail.
But the politicians who took money, and the politicians who stood by and let it happen, or the politicians like Ilhan Omar who created legislation to pave the way for this kind of fraud. And I think we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg of the fraud that exists in this country. And the American taxpayer is done. We are sick and tired of paying for this nonsense. And I'm not trying to get political. I think this transcends politics.
It's right and
this
wrong.
is part of where we're at as a country, and this news that is just like a fireworks show every day is because we're out of control. And I think the only way we peel that back is we the people. And so I want to focus on American people. And I think that should be the focus. And the reason why I'm okay with Maduro is because he was killing American people.
Yeah.
And like I said, I was joking, but I was like, we should do Minnesota next, but we should do the cartels next. And I hope to see some of those guys plucked out of their comfy beds in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I'm not going to speak to anything classified, but we've been watching the cartels for a lot of decades.
But that doesn't give me comfort. That says to me that we're complicit in it.
No.
And I know for a fact through Noriega, the CIA was very complicit in what was going on. And then when he decided he didn't want to play the game anymore, that's when he was removed. We cannot pretend like we're lily white in this whole situation. We have got to stop with the nonsense of enabling this drug trafficking and arms trafficking and building up forces in other countries that we later have to fight. Like we are our own worst enemies in many ways, many ways. But what this does is, if I want to continue to have you I'm going to continue to create problems so that I can create solutions for you. So you're like, hey, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for
fixing this.
And government doesn't fix problems. They create more problems.
Yeah.
They create problems. Then they come up with a solution which only increases the size of government and creates more problems.
So how do you I want to get to a religious aspect of this, because I think that is definitely a cornerstone of America. So I want to talk to you about your faith, and you said praying and everything, but how do you think we can fix these government messes we've talked about a couple on the show. We have a giant eye. We see a lot of things that we can't stop. And then we don't want to many times, because then when we start getting involved in things that have second, third, fourth order effects that we just don't know where we're awakening whenever we start to jump in here. How do we go about making American government different than what it's perceived to be?
The government is the way it is because of us. We've done it. We voted these people in. And the reason why is because we walked away from God. So God is the first answer. People sit here and they're like, they get uncomfortable. I'm sorry you're uncomfortable. We're in God's world.
Yeah.
And God is the key thing. And if we bring them back in, families. One of the things that Charlie Kirk talked about, which I loved, and I thought I saw it really when, sadly and tragically, he was killed because he was exercising his First Amendment. And he was one of the nice guys, right?
Yeah.
And he was out there talking to people. And what he was encouraging people, yes, he was standing true to what he thought was common sense principles. But what he was pushing also was a restored belief in God and family. America was built on the family unit. And globalism and Satan and evil have tried to tear away at the family, because that way you can then permeate evil throughout the rest of society.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing now is Europe, Those birth rates are below 1.5 in England, France, Germany, Spain. They're done. It's unsustainable to have a civilization when you go less than 1.9 birth rate. Muslims, on the other hand, are actually having a much higher birth rate. And so what you're seeing is more infiltration from Islam into there. Islam is incompatible with America. It is incompatible because we were built on a belief in God and Jesus Christ. And our nation is, those two they're oil and water. And so we need to wake up. My second piece to that is God's the first piece. The second piece is Constitution. The founding fathers, and I'm going to give you a coin here. I was going to give it to you after, but I just feel like this is the appropriate time to do it.
I love it.
All right, I've tore this thing up, so let's set this down on the ground.
Yeah, do it.
If you can see here on this, so I did this during COVID, but
oh, that's sick. So for those that are just listening, it's a picture of him holding the Constitution, and he's got an AR in his right hand, the Constitution in the left. Looks like he's walking across the street. I've seen this picture.
So I took this picture back in COVID, and we didn't do the lockdowns. We didn't do the mask mandates. We weren't doing the vaccine mandates. That was a bunch of hogwash, and we knew it at the time. And we sided with the Constitution. And so one day I came in because I was frustrated because all these politicians were trying to say, oh, you can't go visit your family for Thanksgiving. So I go in one day and I had this thought. And so I tell my guy, grab the camera. Yeah. And we grab the camera and I grab the Constitution off the wall. And we drive over to the road that leads into Country Thunder over in Florence. And I take a picture walking across the street holding the Constitution and a gun. And I said, you know where I'm going for Thanksgiving? Wherever the hell I want. And so I resurrected that with the coin. And on the back of it, it says, I was born free. I have lived free. I will die free. Sheriff Mark Lamb. But I wanted to give you this coin.
I'll take that. Thank you.
What I want to point out on this coin and what I want to point out on the Constitution is the first three words are in huge, bold, big print. And it is the key to our success in this country. Yes. And if you don't know what it is, shame on you, but it's we the people.
Yeah.
The founding fathers put it in big, bold print at the beginning of the Constitution to tell us what the most important piece for fixing and maintaining this country is. It's we the people. So that's your coin there.
Thank you. I will. Thank you. This is amazing.
This is going to touch nerves for people, but I'm going to tell you this because I saw it last night. I was laying there and watching social media, and they were talking about January 6th. And they showed a picture they always show the picture of the people climbing the walls and busting the windows and stuff. But the picture they don't show you is the politicians hiding like cowards in the rows and hiding, trying to become as small as they could. Why? Because they fear the people. Now, people may or may not like that example, but I'm going to tell you right now, they're cowards. And the only strength we have is we the people. I tell a story all the time. Like when I speak, I say, do you know why zebras have stripes?
No.
So, some people think it's camouflage for their surroundings, but that's BS. Like a lion is tan. It could be 3 feet in front of you. You may not see it. A zebra, you can see from a mile away out on the tan landscape. So it's not camouflage from their surroundings. So the scientist wants to understand. So he goes out and he's watching the zebras and he's looking at this big group of zebras. And then he looks down and he makes a note. When he looks back up, he can't find the zebra that he was looking at. So he's like, I got an idea. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my Jeep out the next day and I'm going to take a can of red paint. I'm going to paint an X on the butts of a few of the zebras. That way I can watch them. So he goes out the next day, does that, paints an X on a few of the butts of the zebras, comes back, thinks he's pretty slick, and he then goes the next day and guess what he finds? The predators ate those zebras.
Oh my gosh.
What he found was that the predators could not hunt the herd. They had to be able to identify and separate out a zebra to be able to hunt them. And the other thing that he understood is that the zebra stripes were not camouflage for their surroundings. They were camouflage for each other. Mm. It's the we the people principle. As long as we stand together as a herd, we're impenetrable.
Yeah.
We're not going to be picked off. But every day, politicians, media, people with an agenda divide us on race, religion, politics, social ideology. Anything they can, they will divide us on. Yeah. And they love it. Yeah. And because you know why? We are no longer we the people when they do that. And the day that we realize that the secret is right in the first 3 words of the Constitution, then we'll fix this country. And I will challenge everybody, you better start, we got to get our zebra stripes together. It's we the people. And the people that have made the laws for the several last decades are the ones. One more thing. I know I'm going
Bring
off.
it.
Abraham Lincoln wrote a speech. It's a great speech. It's called the Lincoln's Lyceum Address that he gave at the Lyceum Boys Club in Springfield, Illinois in 1827. One of his greatest speeches. But he was talking about the division that existed in the country at the time. And somebody had asked him, what's going to happen with the country? And he says, I don't think the Union will be dissolved, nor do I think it will fail, but it cannot continue divided. Either it will go all the way one way or all the way the other way. And then he went on further to say, all the armies in Africa, Europe, and Asia combined with all the riches in the world, minus our riches, could never cross over this ocean and take a drink from the Ohio River. If we are to be destroyed, it will be from within. And while these politicians want you to be locked in to some guy who's living in a cave over in another country or somebody in some other country, the truth is it's the people that are within our country who are destroying it. Abraham Lincoln and so many other of our founding fathers have told us time and time again, watch out from the enemy within. That's why when we swear an oath to the Constitution, we swear an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. What they want you to do is they want the media and the politicians try to make it one group of people that is that domestic terror, that enemy. Well, in truth, the domestic enemy is mostly in Washington, D.C., and they wear 3-piece suits.
Yes, all of that. So
I know we're not getting anywhere where you wanted to go on your questions.
I absolutely love this because there's a lot of truth to a lot of people that are going to hear this, and I want to go back into the religious aspects of this country. It's a separation of church and state, but it was a separation of church and state for a reason. But we were founded on Christian principles. That's our country.
Well, first of all, the separation of church and state was merely a paper that was written, and it was basically an idea. And it wasn't that they didn't want God in there, because at the same time, they were implementing, God is in every state constitution. As a matter of fact, I think 11 of the 13 required an oath to God.
Yeah.
When the Constitution.
But off the backs of that, just to get back into, you told a story on, I believe it was Sean Ryan, about a man that you guys were helping, and then later found out something just amazing. Can you tell that story to my audience?
What's funny is I'd never told that story, but maybe 3-4 times in my life.
Yeah.
I don't even think my kids had heard that story.
It's an amazing story.
And, it's a very, very close story to me, so I just didn't really tell it that much. And since then, I've had a lot of podcasters be like, hey, can you tell me that story again?
Yeah.
I was serving as a missionary. Look, I'm a deeply religious person. And people think that that Jesus Christ was, that you have to love everybody. No, Jesus Christ did not tolerate evil. He had no compromise with evil. That's why they didn't like him.
Yeah.
That's why they had to kill him. When he went into the temple, he overturned the tables.
Flipped the tables.
Jesus, through the scriptures, if you look at it, the men that he loved the most were the warriors.
Yeah.
So
when he got his ear, when they came into his camp and they cut the ear, he had to hold everybody back, be like, "No, I got to let this happen."
Even the scriptures where it says, where it says, if somebody sort of strike you, give them your other cheek.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody recently. They said that the real translation of that from Hebrew is show them your other side, which is a big difference from giving them your other cheek. It's show them your other side.
Yeah.
We joke at work, but my nickname is the War Machine. I'm the nicest person
until
I'm not the nicest person. But I'm a big believer in God, and I have no compromise with evil, and I I think tolerance is a word of the adversary of Satan, and it is a word that has infiltrated our language. And what we do is people try to say we need to tolerate this behavior. No, I don't. I wouldn't tolerate it amongst my children. Doesn't mean I don't love you.
Yeah.
So I preface all that to say I'm a deeply religious person. And I served a mission for my church, and I was a missionary for 2 years in Argentina, and it was the greatest experience of my life. It is, you become a man, you're sent there to another country, and I had no communication with my family, but 3-4 times a year on the phone. No, 3-4 times in 2 years, and everything by letter. But anyway, I was in one area, and I had actually, normally you just have one companion. I'd actually had two, and they were both new. Okay. I had a Argentine companion, an American companion. And we had a full schedule one day. Man, it wasn't working out. It was just, nothing was going right.
Yeah.
And everything was getting canceled. And then we had a couple of last things in the evening. We're like, screw it. Let's just go back to the apartment. And so we're standing on the corner, and we see this guy trying to cross the street, old bum, and he's just shuffling his feet. And we're standing there as we're talking about going home. We're just kind of watching him, and we're just debating on whether we just go. And finally we thought, let's just go help this guy.
Yeah.
So right as we walk across the street, he trips over the curb and we catch him. And then we're trying to get him back over, we're trying to talk to him, but when we talk to him, he's like, we can't understand anything he's saying. We can't see his face. Got really long, dirty hair, multiple layers of dirty clothes on, can't walk. So then we walk from probably only maybe 30 yards. And it takes us probably 45 minutes to walk 30 yards. It takes us forever. I don't even know if it was that far. And we walk over, and by this time the sun had kind of gone down. So now it's just getting dark. And we walk over to what's a kiosco, which is a kiosk where they would sell, people would have it at their house, and they would sell, different things, milk and candy. And so we asked the guy, we're like, hey, do you know who this guy is? He's like, yeah, he lives right over there. And we're like, well, what does he normally order? And he says he orders milk and candles. And so we said, well, give us some milk and candles. And it was right at that time that we hadn't seen his face or anything. And I'm standing in front of him, and my two guys are right here on the side. And then he just looks up, and his face was clean, and it was no question, it was the face of Christ. And we just looked at each other for what seemed like a couple minutes, but it was probably only maybe 2-3 seconds, 4 seconds. And then he put his head back down. And I looked at the two guys on the side, and we looked at each other, and we were just like, what did we just see? What did we just experience?
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, at that point, we're kind of befuddled.
Yeah.
And we take the guy back, and now we can kind of understand. He's like, who are you? And we said, hey, look, we're just angels taking you home. That's it. And so we take him back, and he doesn't actually live in the house. In front of the house is a little, like a closet. And he literally lived in a closet. There was a bunch of crap behind, and he had a seat like this, and he had a table in front of him with a bunch of melted wax. And we put his bag of milk in a little milk holder, and we put his candle on there, and we left. When we came back a few days later, we asked where he was, and they had told us that he had died that night. But for us, it left a deep experience. My faith in God is rocks. It doesn't matter. I'm 100% focused on that.
Do you think that you needed to see that at that moment to reassure you in your missions or in your faith, or do you think that was just additive?
Look, I was born, I've always been believed in God and Jesus Christ. I've been I've never drank, smoke. I'm just always lived a certain life. That's just who I wanted to be. And I've never once, I listen to other people say they have to find their faith in their life. I feel like I was born with it. I was born with a deep faith. And so for me, all that did was just solidify it. It just solidified I don't know what the reasons were, but it has certainly left a lasting impression in my life. And so, and what it did when I shared that, oddly enough, that was probably when I left there, my wife goes, how did it go? And I go, well, I don't know. I shared that experience in Argentina. And I didn't know how that would go. And yet that is probably what more people come up to me and mention about the Sean Ryan show. They talk about that. And they talk about how they experienced something similar, or thank you for being willing to share your faith and your experiences. And, you know, if anything, if it enables people to reignite their faith in God and Jesus Christ, then that's served a purpose. And so I'm grateful that I shared the message, and thanks for letting me share it again today. And hopefully people will reignite their love of God and Jesus Christ.
I love that. I recently ran across this poem from James McCrae called Instructions Before Visiting Earth. Have you heard this one before?
No.
So it feels like something I should know and something I should memorize, but it's nothing new. But it makes me feel more spiritual. I'll read it to you now if you give me a minute.
I'm gonna have to memorize it.
In the event that you wake up and find your soul separated from source and manifested into material form, don't panic. Your condition is only temporary. You have been selected for the opportunity of human incarnation. This 3D simulation is designed to break up the monotony of eternity by giving you a fully immersive experience as a distinct ego identity. Your body will serve as your physical avatar as you navigate a dense and dramatic reality. There will be many distractions, causing you to forget your true nature and origin. You will experience a range of emotion, from joy to loneliness to despair. But remember, no matter what trials and trauma you encounter, your soul remains perfectly safe. At times, you may feel lost and afraid. This is totally normal. If you ever need guidance, simply slow down your busy mind and bring your awareness to the quiet place inside yourself. On this planet, nothing is permanent. People and things will come and go. You will fall in love and form sentimental attachments only to lose everything you hold dear. So cling to nothing too tightly, even yourself. And when it's time to let go with grace. For nothing is owned, only borrowed. As you walk among the people of the earth, try to be a good guest. Tread lightly. Remember that you're only visiting. Don't make a mess. Listen more than you speak. Give more than you take. Keep your heart soft and locked inside a glass cage, protected from wear and tear. You'll never make it out alive. And time passes quickly. So come back with some battle scars and some good stories to tell.
I love that.
Isn't that amazing?
I love it. It's amazing. I don't know if I can, man, that's a tough one to memorize, but man, that is good.
Yeah.
And that encapsulates everything. People forget we were in a war in heaven, if you read the scriptures, and that war in heaven is spilled over onto earth. 1/3 of the host of heaven were kicked out of heaven.
Yeah.
And now we're fighting that battle of good and evil, and it's at its climax. And it really is easy to forget what our purpose is here on this earth, and I love that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to have you send me that.
Yeah, I will. I absolutely will. For me, I had an encounter similar. I was flying over some airspace with some Marines in Iraq, and we took on fire. And whenever that happens, the helicopter does certain things. The gunners stand up. They start to return fire. And in that moment, I experienced an extreme calm. I can't explain it, but I felt safe. Like, it's going to happen or it's not. Doesn't matter. I know where I'm going. And as I looked over to the people that I was escorting, they were local. They were Iraq technicians that I was bringing out to take care of equipment so that they could recover their airspace. They were in panic mode. They were peeing their pants. They were looking at me for like, why are you so calm? And the difference was my faith. Mm-hmm. I don't tell that story too often either, but there's always moments where I get reassurances from my belief system that I can't explain to other people who don't believe like me. So I appreciate you sharing that story. I appreciate you coming into the studio.
Man, that is it's a powerful story, and it's a powerful reminder of life is temporary. There is no guarantee for tomorrow. If you're still alive, you have a purpose here on this earth.
Yeah.
We're not meant to be just clocking in and clocking out and just living we're meant to take a bite out of it, man. Do more, be involved,
if you aren't dead,
challenge yourself, like find out who you are. All of us are sons and daughters of God, and most people will never truly find out who they are And I want to go back, and when I die, first I want people to say about me that he was a patriot who fought valiantly for God, family, freedom, and the Constitution. But B, when I get in front of God, I want him to say, great job. You gave it hell. You know, you really worked hard, and I thank you. I want to be that guy. When we lost our kids, my son and my granddaughter, my daughter-in-law, it really reminded us that there is no guarantee for tomorrow. And the only things we take with us in this life are what we do. And if we don't do something, we're going to have nothing to talk about in the eternity.
No, we won't. Well, if you're not dead, you're not done.
That's right.
And I love the way you put that in. Well, I'm going to give you some gifts. You gave me some gifts. This is a coin I never give out. This is my last command.
Oh, man, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then I'm going to give you something that I give to all my celebrity guests.
That's awesome.
This is my my ginger beard patch.
I love it.
I give it to people because it's...
I'm gonna put that on the roof of my car.
You know, my bloodline traces back to piracy. In Baltimore, we fought against people who were trying to enslave our people. We killed them and stole their boats, and we got called pirates. And that spirit is standing up for what's right, has always been with me. So that's our patch. That's for people who don't quit. Mike Tyson got it. You know, Don Fry's got a couple in his house. You know, there's a lot of
right there. Don Fry.
There's a lot of masculinity tied to that patch.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give it to you. True man,
Appreciate
true man of God, true servant. Thank you for coming into World War Studio today. I'm always your fan.
Thank you.
Thank
God
you.
bless you, brother.
And for everyone else, this is a top 1% show because of you. We did this in a year because you keep sharing shows like this. So hit that subscribe. Keep doing that. And remember to stay on target and in excellence. I'm Atlas Aultman. Thank you so much for coming by. Stay with us as we stay on target with another awesome episode coming up next. We'll see you there. And subscribe to Targeted Now. As an ambassador to buckedup.com, I get to give you our special discount. That's Atlas25 when you go to buckedup.com to get that special discount. Only for our listeners, Atlas25. Go to buckedup.com now. Entrepreneurs, you're wasting money. Are you paying for TV, radio, maybe even newspapers? I gotta tell you, that's all dead. What's new? Well, I'm glad you asked, Atlas. It's podcasting. Just so happens I have a very successful podcast that I can put you on. And we're looking for guests. So if you have a product or service that will help people, hit us up. Atlas Aultman Targeted Podcast. We bring new audiences to new people, and we bring new people to, well, you check us out.